guys, and welcome back to the Offbeat Gardener. Today we're going to be preserving some onions. So my plan is to keep one or two of them whole and available for fresh eating and fresh usage for like a salad or something. But the overwhelming majority of these I'm going to caramelize and preserve because that's something that's been on my mind for a while, that I wanted to have preserved caramelized onions ready to go, handy in the freezer or canned up. Haven't decided yet. Some of them I'm going to chop just to freeze. I have a decent stash that I can show you in a bit of onions that I've already preserved and froze that I've chopped up. And basically what I did, and I'll demonstrate in a minute, but I'm basically taking these little pieces of onion that I have pre-cut and I'm dicing them up in this thing. And this thing is so great. You can see I already started the process. I'm doing this outside because in my experience, it's saved me a lot of headache from crying a river from all the onions, peeling them and chopping them and all that stuff. I prefer to do these things outside just because it makes life easy. And if things get dirty, I don't care because it's outside. So that's another positive about that. But this chopper, I can link it down below. I got it on Amazon. It's a fantastic chopper. Since I've gotten it, I've used it a ton. If you're interested in this, I promise it does not disappoint. This thing is fantastic. All I did to get the little squares of onion is, like I said, I peeled and chopped my onion into this size. So like I cut it in half and then I quartered the half. All you do, you put your piece of onion in there, slam it shut, and that's all she wrote. It's really that simple, and it doesn't take a lot of muscle to get the job done. Let's continue this process, and once I get to the part where I'm gonna prepare the onions that I want to caramelize, I will show you that process too. But just to make life a little faster, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera off and get this process rocking and rolling. If I didn't mention, I have 10 pounds of onions here, and I have another bag over there of the same exact kind of onions, another 10-pound bag. So let me go ahead and start processing this. Before I forget, I have a cutting board here. I have my knife. I have a bowl over here for all the peels that I'm gonna save and freeze for broth making later. And then I have this bowl to put all of the chopped and peeled onions in. So you saw how easy that was. It really was no effort at all to get all of that chopped up. And let's close that lid. You can see there all of our beautifully diced onions that took no effort and caused absolutely zero tears. So this is a beautiful thing. Again, I love this device here. If you're interested in it, I'll link it down below for sure. Here's a look at our chopped onions outside of the container so you can see what that looks like. They're absolutely fabulous, and I cannot wait to package these up and freeze them. I like to chop them up like this. They just cook really well this way, I think, and this is kind of the cut that I use for the overwhelming majority of the dishes I make, so it kind of works out. But for the caramelized onion, I don't think I'm going to chop them this way. I'm going to chop them lengthwise, so like little strips. Stay tuned for that. We're going to get into that in a moment. I'm starting to prepare the ones that I'm going to caramelize, and I basically did the same thing. I peeled it, I cut the onion in half, and I'm just gonna leave it as this half. I also changed the grate on the chopper, so now we have this one here, which I'll show you in a second what the chopped onion looks like when you switch out the grate. So all it is, same process like before. Now we got it a little bit smaller, and same process. You just take the lid. A little tricky to do with one hand, requires a little bit more smashing, but overall not too bad, not too difficult. And here's what our pieces look like, and this for me is perfect for caramelizing onions because it still has a bit of weight to it, but it's uniform, so they'll cook evenly. So this is exactly what I want to make my caramelized onions, plus they're bite-sized. So here's where we're at with this. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the onions and we'll go from there. Alright guys, all of the onions have been chopped up and they're ready to be processed. So I'm going to go ahead and take this bowl and get my chopper ready and start chopping away. We still have a long way to go with this humongous bowl of onions. So I'm gonna go ahead and chop the rest of these up, and when I'm done with that, I'll bring you along for the next step. All right guys, here's our humongous bowl of onions. I'd say it's about 18, maybe 19 pounds of onions in here. It's a humongous bowl. What I'm gonna do right now is I have the roaster preheating. Once that preheats, I'm gonna go ahead and dump all of these onions in there with some butter and a little bit of salt. I'll show you that in a minute. Also, here's our big bag of onion parts, if you will. All of the skins and everything, the ends that I chopped off, all of that's in here, and this is all gonna go in the freezer and hopefully become broth. I feel like I've been talking about making broth for an eternity, probably in every single video I mention it, and I still haven't gotten around to it. I have all the ingredients for it, and I even have the bones and all that, but it's just been low on the priority list. That'll happen at some point, hopefully, but for right now, the broth is gonna have to wait. I wanted to show you guys real quick the stash that I currently have. I have a ton of these. This bucket that I have here is pretty deep, and it's pretty full with chopped onions. And honestly, this is my favorite way to preserve onions for like everyday use, because when you take them out of the freezer and put them in a pot or pan, they taste as if they were fresh. So if you need a way to store onions, I highly suggest that you give this a try. These have been in here for like a month and a half, and they're holding up perfectly fine. There's no freezer burn or anything like that. So this is just to give you an idea of how convenient it can be if you take the time. Just take one afternoon and go ahead and process all your onions, chop them up. To have this handy and ready to go saves so much time when you're trying to cook, especially like for me, if I come home from work and I want to make a quick meal, all I have to do is grab a bag of these onions that are already pre-chopped, throw them in my pan, and make whatever meal it is that I'm trying to make. I wanted to show this also because I'm not growing onions. I don't have the ability right now to grow all of my own onions, so the next best thing is for me to purchase from somewhere like Azure and then go ahead and process them myself, and there's no shame in the game. And yeah, so I just want to show you this real quick, and I need to close up this freezer. There's all kinds of garden goodness that I've preserved, and I'll give you a tour of that some other time. All right guys, I have my 22 quart roaster here, and as you can see, it's empty. I'll be adding all of these onions in there, throwing in a little bit of salt. I took 2 of these out of the freezer, so these are gonna go in with all of the onions, and that's about it. So the onions fit really nicely in this 22 quart roaster. I have it set to the lowest setting, which is 150. The 2 sticks of butter are way down at the bottom. I'm gonna take some of my salt, sprinkle it on top. Not too much, just enough to help the onions sweat. That should be good. And now we wait. All right, I'm gonna set this roaster to right around here, so like 225, and now we just wait it out. All right guys, several hours have passed, and here's where we're at with the onions. It's a little hard to convey on camera exactly the color. Woo, that's a lot of steam. You can kind of tell what color they are. They're darker in person than they are on camera. I'll put exactly how many hours they took to cook on the screen here so you can see, but basically I'm gonna consider this done, and the next step is to can this up, and I'll show you that process momentarily, so stay tuned. I just want to show you real quick how much the onions cooked down from where we had it before when we first started this process. Here I have my pressure canner, which is still empty. I have not put any water or anything in it. What I'm gonna do right now is jar up these onions. I was gonna use a half pint, but I decided to go with the 3/4 pint instead. I think it's a pretty decent size for a meal, so that's what we're gonna use today. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill those up, and once I get that done, we'll go to the next step. Alright guys, not too shabby. I have 12 3/4 pint jars and 12 half pint jars from all of that, to kind of give you a rough idea of how much you're gonna get. If you caramelize about 20 pounds, 19-20 pounds of onions, this is approximately what it would look like. So my jars right now are a hot mess. I need to wipe them down with vinegar, especially the top part of it, so that we don't have any, you can see that grease on my finger. These are super greasy. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe everything down with some white vinegar and clean these up a bit because they're, like I said, a hot mess. And then I'm gonna put the lids on them and put them in the pressure canner. Get these babies ready to go for long-term storage. jars inside the canner. I just turned the heat on. I'm gonna put the lid on, and now we're gonna start the canning process. All right, we got the lid on. Everything's ready to go. So now it's just heating up. Once some steam starts to pop out of here, like a consistent flow of steam, we're gonna set a timer for 10 minutes to let that vent. Once the 10 minutes is up, we're gonna put our weighted gauge on there. I have it set to 10 pounds. Basically all you do, plop it on top of there and it'll start to jiggle a little bit. You wanna make sure that when you're canning, you have a nice gentle rocking back and forth of the weighted gauge. You don't want it to go too crazy. If it goes too crazy, you need to turn your heat down. That's basically the gist of how to can. All right, guys, we're venting right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and set the timer for 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes is over, we're gonna go ahead and put the weighted gauge onto that part right there. I'll bring you back once we finish that part. All right, our 10 minutes are up. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the weighted gauge. You wanna be careful because this thing is still hot. We're gonna wait for that to jiggle. See if I need to adjust the temperature. All right, guys, our gauge is rocking and rolling right now. Maybe a little loud, so I apologize. This is the point where you want to make some temperature adjustments to make sure that the gauge isn't going too fast. This is more or less where I want it to be. The pressure canning time for half pints is 70 minutes, and for pints it's 75. I have the 3/4 pints in here, so I'm gonna run it for 73 minutes, kind of meet somewhere in the middle. Again, I'm not a professional canner. Always follow your canner's instructions and do what's best for you and your family, but I'm gonna go ahead and leave this for 73 minutes. And I already started my timer, so I'll meet you back here once our time is up. All right, guys, our time is up, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the heat. So the heat is off now, and you can see the gauge has stopped moving. I'm gonna leave it alone so that it can cool off by itself, and once this little thing goes all the way down, then I'll know that it's ready. At that point, I will go ahead and take the weighted gauge off, let it vent some more in case there's any pressure still left in the canner, and then after that, we can go ahead and remove our jars. And we still have one more batch to go. So that's just the first batch. These I'm going to process for 70 minutes, and once that's done, I'll bring you back so you can see how everything turned out. All right, guys, processing time, cool down time, all the times, they're all done. It actually smells really good because, you know, these things kind of cook a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take the jars out. I've already heard some popping, which is something we love to hear. All right, let me put the camera down so I can get the rest of these out. Alright, we got the second batch loaded up, so I'm going to go ahead and close this lid. Now we turn the stove on. I'm turning it on high right now just to get the water boiling because the water is lukewarm in the canner. So we're gonna let that come up to boil, and once we see some steam coming out of here, we're basically repeating the cycle that we just did. Once the steam comes out, again, we vent for 10 minutes. Once the venting process is over, we put the weight on here. For me, it's 10 pounds because of my altitude. Then it's 70 minutes because we have half pints in here. Pretty straightforward. Alright, guys, there you have it. All of the wonderful caramelized onions. I took the ring off of this one so you can see. Got a nice seal on that. It's looking good. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. Hope you found this video somewhat informational. Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!